You're listening to Agile Ideas, the podcast, hosted by Fatima Abuchi. For anyone listening out there not having a good day, please know there is help out there. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Agile Ideas. I'm Fatima, CEO at Agile Management Office, Mental Health Ambassador, and your host. This podcast is sponsored by Agile Management Office, providing high-impact delivery execution in an agile era for scaling businesses. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking to you about something that I'm extremely passionate about, and that is the topic of mental health. But more specifically, a question that I often get asked around, how are you doing everything that you're doing, and how are you doing all of that whilst managing your anxiety disorder? And it's something that sort of triggered a sort of concept in terms of the topic moving forward. And one of the topics moving forward that I'd like to focus on, if it's beneficial for everybody, is the topic of being successfully anxious. Now, what does that mean? Well, a lot of us suffer in one way or another from some mental health conditions, as well as other conditions that are not mental health related. But for the purpose of successfully anxious, one of the things that I wanted to sort of emphasize on is that despite having an anxiety disorder, it's entirely possible to be successful. And success means different things to different people. So it's your version of success, not a dictionary definition of it. And so I wanted to share some insights in terms of successfully anxious, what it means to me and how to deal with being anxious while trying to be successful. And that's a bit of a mouthful, but it is a bit of a hurdle and a challenge. But sometimes it can be quite fun, because if you're like me in high functioning anxiety, you actually do get motivated and pushed a lot by the fear that sometimes holds us back. In addition to talking to you about that, I also wanted to give you, my followers, a sneak peek into a side project that I'm working on at the moment. It's a top secret project that's going to be coming to you soon. And it is in relation to the mental health space, and something that I'm incredibly passionate about, and decided to set up a project, and I've been working on it relentlessly to get it out to you. So hopefully you'll get to hear that very soon, and I hope that it resonates with you and you enjoy following that journey. If you're not already following me on LinkedIn, please do so, and you will be the first to know. So, successfully anxious and how to deal with it. What is successfully anxious? Well, it's all about the feelings that you have when you know that you're trying to maybe climb the corporate ladder, set up a business, grow your family, build business, building your home, whatever it is that you're trying to do in life. You want to be successful at it. Obviously, that's why we try and do the things that we do. Those things help us to be cognizant of what the path that we need to follow in order to become successful in our own right. And successful can mean so many different things. I don't want to make success just about business, or success about, career. It could be success in health and family and life. Success could be whatever it is that it means to you. For the purpose of my story and the examples I want to share with you today, it's about trying to build a startup and grow that startup, and having all of the hurdles that come with running a business whilst dealing with an anxiety disorder. I don't want to pretend like anxiety doesn't affect me, but I also don't want to pretend like anxiety completely stops me either. And I know that there are people that are in different paths of their journey, some that are more impacted by mental health, such as anxiety disorders, more than others. But for me, it's been a complete whirlwind and roller coaster of events from start to finish. Now, when I say start, for me, my anxiety started, I would say, back in about 2007, so early 20s. And it really did just come out of the blue. And I am talking about, it just started after a intensive panic attack, something that I really didn't know what it was at the time. And, it's sad to say, but at that point in time, despite being a healthy early 20-year-old, I was actually completely panicked and of the belief that I was about to die. I know that may sound quite extreme, but I kid you not, the feelings that overcame me in that moment, that fateful night where my first ever official panic attack came over me, was something that was like nothing I've ever experienced before. And that one night back in 2007 completely changed my life. Now, a lot of negativity has come about because of the anxiety and the challenges associated with it. But there also has been some shining lights and moments of accomplishment and moments of joy and moments of happiness. And the reason for that is because what I've been able to do with the anxiety to make it work for me. I'm a big believer that you need to learn how to manage your anxiety so it doesn't manage you. You need to learn how to control it so it doesn't control you. And it's so easy for it to go the other way and actually feel completely overwhelming. For the first few months of my anxiety journey, I didn't leave the house. I found it really, really hard to get in my car and drive to a friend's house or do anything that I used to do before. It was extremely daunting and extremely challenging. And now, as I look back at that moment or those moments, many of those moments over the last 10, 15 years, it just shocks me to think that I was that bad and that it was that bad for me. It was extremely difficult and extremely challenging. And I wouldn't wish the anxiety that I've had on anyone. I wouldn't wish it upon my worst enemy. It is just so debilitating in its extreme form. And so early on in my journey, when going through the challenges that I had, I wanted to make sure that I could overcome it because I had always had the desire from being very, very young to do something great in life. And I don't know what that was. It might have been the fact that I'm one of 6 children in my family and we grew up in the poorer northern suburbs. It might be the fact that my parents were both migrants and traveled here when they were very, very young from the Middle East. It might be a range of things. It might be just the fact that being the middle girl of 6 children and wanting to fight for that attention made it really challenging to be heard and to get that sort of support and guidance that it was needed because there were so many of us and so much attention needing to go around when you're a big family like we were. So I don't want to pretend anxiety doesn't affect me today, but I will give you a little bit of hope that if you are suffering your own anxiety challenges or you are on your own anxiety journey, that it does get better if you put in the work. I don't want to pretend like you can't, that you're going to overcome it if you don't put in the work. I can tell you firsthand from the people I've been mentoring and coaching in this space, even immediate family, some that are making more of an effort to overcome it and others that are not. I say to people that anxiety is sort of like riding a bike. You learn how to ride a bike and then you know how to ride a bike, but you don't need to ride a bike. You can take your car and go wherever you want to go. But if the situation arose where the only option and the only transport home was a bike, you'd know how to ride it. So it's about controlling the situation as best as you can and trying to learn some techniques and different approaches to how to manage the anxiety in amongst everything else that you're trying to achieve from a perspective of career and life in general. So when we think about the complications that occur when you are suffering from anxiety and trying to be successful at the same time, my goodness, it's a journey. It's like a roller coaster. There will be days where you're on a high and other days where you come crashing right back down. But I wanted to talk through three key complications or three key challenges that I've been faced with that I've had to work really hard at. The first one is having high expectations. So, what this means is not just high expectations on what other people are going to think, which is something that unfortunately has plagued me since I was very young. And I am getting better at it, better at caring less and caring more about what it is that I'm doing and how I'm going about things, and knowing that as long as it is in line with what I'm passionate about and it's coming from the heart, then I need to have less pressure on thinking that it's not good enough. For example, I've been working on some projects at the moment, and one of those is developing out our workshops. Now, I would have loved to have released the workshop by now, but the fear of the perfection and the high expectations that comes with the anxiety has made me sort of hesitant and held back. So I want to spend more time to make sure that I get the absolute best outcome for the audience. Now, that's not to say that what I've come up with already wasn't good enough, but to me, the expectations that I set on myself means that it's not. And it is a bit of a challenge because it's not easy to continuously feel that you have to have that high expectation and then trying to manage to that expectation for everything. There's a whole conversation around work-life balance and other things. And, it really, really, really is personalized to your specific situation. Take into consideration people that I know and that I speak to that are also raising a family, that may also be climbing a corporate ladder, maybe having a side hustle and trying to get fit at the same time. There's a lot of expectations that you'll set on yourself and that you don't need to put that pressure on, because having anxiety and trying to be successful at the same time is hard enough as it is, let alone adding extra pressure and adding more expectations. So I think that one of the things that I tell myself now is don't have high expectations of others and then be surprised. And then with myself, I will continuously have high expectations, except I will challenge that and I will ask for feedback. So I will have things peer reviewed within our team. I will ask customers for feedback. I will ask my coaches and mentors for feedback so that I know that the expectations that I'm setting are not only realistic, but they also need to be achievable. Otherwise, the anxiety shadow that follows you around will continuously tell you that it's not good enough. The second challenge that I wanted to call out is very closely related to the first, but it's all about that imposter syndrome. Now, if you don't know much about the imposter syndrome, I won't get into the details now, but it really is about it's really an unfortunate thing that happens to a lot of people, even those without any anxiety disorders, mind you. But it is that feeling of that you are a phony and that you are a fraud, and that you're just sailing through this life or this career or this job or this business or whatever it is that you're doing, and actually fooling everybody else around you. And there's been a lot of times where I felt like an imposter in my own business and in my own career, especially times where I've been bullied in the past. And I talk openly about that. There's been many instances of that. And it's really challenging to try to shake that imposter syndrome pressure off. It's not easy, and it's constantly plaguing me and others. But one of the things that I found really helpful is that I try to track achievements along the journey of climbing the corporate ladder, of setting up a business, of building a great team and a great team culture. Tracking your achievements, things that you've achieved that you've got evidence for. For example, winning awards. We've won 3 awards in the last 12 months, all at the same time for some of the work that we did within a large retail company in the midst of COVID, and was able to increase the culture and engagement of this particular organization's department significantly. And in addition to that, in addition to tracking achievements that you can go and reflect on, is by having honest guiding mentors or coaches. And I say mentors or coaches because, in addition to being someone who coaches others myself, I actually have three of them. I have a business coach, I have a CEO coach, because being a CEO is the first time I've ever done it in this business. And then I have a sales coach as well, because the sales side of it is a weakness of mine. I don't like to come across as if I'm selling things, because I've never sort of been trained in that space. It's not something that comes natural to me. What does come natural to me is being able to tell someone about my product or service and why it's going to benefit them. And so I can do that really well, but then trying to sell and put any pressure on a customer is something that I'm just definitely not interested in doing. But having a sales coach is really helping us to understand from a customer's perspective the things that are helpful and necessary along the journey, along the sales cycle. And so that those coaches and mentors are really helping me to overcome some of the imposter syndrome, because they will challenge me. They will tell me if I am on the wrong track. They will tell me if I'm doing things incorrectly. And you know what? Most of the time they've got evidence to support it. The other thing, and probably the third one that I will talk about, is again related to some of the challenges I've just mentioned around high expectations and imposter syndrome, but it's the sort of the desire to challenge my fears. Now, fears, is to me and to many others is fake events appearing real. I don't know if that's really where it comes from, but it sounds great and it makes sense, because more often than not, most times in my life where I've been fearful, the fear themselves are not true. They don't really exist, and it's just there to scare you, and it's there to hold you back, and it's there to prevent you from achieving. It's there to prevent you from being successful. It's there to make you take the negative expectations, take the imposter syndrome, take all of the negative feelings and thoughts and actually bring them onto yourself. And it's really, really, really not helpful. So I try to think about things, and when I am frustrated or I am uncomfortable or when I'm not feeling in the great place, I try to look at whether it's fear that's holding me back. If it's fear, then I'm willing to push past it and try to push past it. For example, in most of my adult life, after a near-death experience of nearly drowning in the high school pool, I can't swim. I never learned to swim. And ever since that moment, I did try taking swimming lessons for a really, really long time, and nothing came about. And I realized it was actually a mental block. It wasn't the actual technique of swimming. That being said, I am still trying to learn. Although I have taken up swimming lessons this year as a goal for me to achieve for 2021. And I really, really, really am trying hard. And what I found was, as soon as I overcame that mental block, so the fear by focusing on the evidence around me, I am unlikely to drown in swimming lessons considering how many instructors are there. The pool is not deep enough for me to drown. I can stand up from start to finish. Little things like that. It's evidences that I look for that helps me to overcome those fear. And it's pushing past the desire to say, no, I don't want to do this. No, I'm not going to be capable of doing this. And that fear that holds you back, you need to push past it. And these 3 challenges are 3 of many more, but I just thought to focus on 3 key ones, because I want to give you some specific techniques or opportunities for you to apply in your day-to-day that may actually help you like they've helped me. What are some of the things that you can do? What are some of the things you can ask yourself? And what are the things that have helped me on my successfully anxious journey to overcome the fear, the imposter syndrome, and the high expectations, and then the overarching anxiety that sits above and under all of that? So what can you do What are some of the things that have really, really been beneficial? One of the things that I learnt through a number of different consultations with a psychologist over time was the concept of, the way I describe it, it's like a three-legged stool. And one leg of the stool is the thoughts, one leg of the stool is the feelings, and one leg of the stool is behaviors. Now, we need all three. Every human has all three. But it's how you manage those three in conjunction with each other and what you tell yourself when experiencing different feelings, behaviors, or thoughts that are going to make or break how you actually react. So let me give you an example. So often having anxiety might come from a particular trigger or a particular stressor, and everybody's triggers will be different. But to give you an example, one of my triggers is usually related to health. So health anxiety, it's one of the things that I am constantly thinking about or concerned about. And let me give you an example. So one of those things that relates to health anxiety, it might be a feeling that occurs in my body somewhere. And it could be, some stomach pain. Considering the stomach is so closely related to your mind, for me, a trigger is if I get an upset stomach or I have a bout of gastro or something like that, it actually can trigger my anxiety, and my anxiety often triggers my stomach to be not feeling very well. So it's all interconnected. But just going back to that example, one of the things that actually links into the thoughts, feeling, and behavior is I might have a feeling like an upset stomach. And then at that point, I immediately go into thoughts. We all do. But some people's thoughts might just be like, hey, stomach hurts. Okay. Other people may do what I do and think, why does my stomach hurt? Where did it come from? When did it start? I wonder if it's something I ate, etc., etc. Now, at that point, I'm already 4 times exhausted from the next person because I've already asking myself 101 questions. Now, it might sound really simple and thinking it's just your stomach, but then it goes into more exaggerated thinking. Is it the appendix? Is it my kidneys? When was the last time I had a checkup? And so I think about those sort of moments, and my feelings then trigger the thoughts. And those thoughts, because they're negative thoughts, then trigger a behavior. And the behavior might be, this doesn't feel right, I need to go and see a doctor. This doesn't feel right, I'm going to call the nurse on call. This doesn't feel right, I need to go to the hospital. In extreme cases, it may be that serious for someone suffering from anxiety. Now, if we take that example and we change the dialogue and we changed the conversation, and we say, and what I say to myself now is I try to consciously change the conversation. These days, what I do more of is I'll have a feeling my stomach doesn't feel really well at the moment. And then my thought will go to, well, that's common because I have anxiety, or I know I've had too much dairy and that doesn't go well with me. Or it might be I had whatever it is that I know usually gives me an upset stomach. And then as a result of that, my behavior might be, well, it's time to get the heat pack. It's time to get the hot water bottle. It might be time to have a break from dinner because I need to give my stomach time to rest. But you see how I took a different path? Now, it's not something that I learned overnight, and it does take effort, but going from one path to the other can be really, really helpful, and has been instrumental for me in trying to change that mindset and actually improve the way things are for me personally. So that's one of the things to think about, the three-legged stool of thoughts, feelings, and behavior. The second thing you can think about is asking yourself to provide evidence for the situation that you are fearing or that you are anxious about. So for example, if you are I'm trying to think of a more recent example. Okay. An occurrence of being anxious inside the cinema. Now, that may sound really unique, but and really specific, but it happens. I have had lots of anxiety in the cinema. They don't turn into panic attacks, and I usually sit quietly with it just to calm myself while I get through. But often thoughts might go something along the lines of, I'm not feeling very well. What if I need to get medical help because my heart's beating faster? What if it's a heart attack? Whatever the situation may be. And I actually start feeling quite overwhelmed. What I try to do is, in my mind, I tell myself, what evidence do I have to suggest that what I'm worried about or I'm fearing is actually going to be happening? I look for evidence, just like asking the right questions and looking for facts. When I work with clients, I look for evidence, I look for facts, use the data to then provide recommendations and then demonstrate the results of our recommendations using data again. It's the same with anxiety. It's about using evidence and suggesting what it is that I'm actually fearful about and thinking about all of the evidence for or against. And what you'll find is if you are early on in your journey of recovery and you write down a list, write your fear at the top and write a list. And on the left-hand side, write down a list of all the things that you have evidence to prove or disprove. Prove. And then on the right-hand side, the things to disprove. And those two lists, if you do it well and honestly, you'll probably find that for the most part, you might not have anything that proves your point, because for the most part, fear is fake events appearing real. And so therefore, you probably will find yourself helping yourself to realize that more and more and more that there actually no evidence to support the thoughts that you're having about a certain situation. So asking yourself questions and looking for evidence would probably be the second one. And the third one that I wanted to mention, which is really, really important for me and for anyone that suffers from anxiety, I think anxiety is really about thinking about the future. Unlike depression, which is thinking about the past, what's been, and what has been and gone, and situations that have already happened, and your thoughts about those situations, good or bad. Anxiety is about thinking about the next step, the next day, the next minute, the next hour. It's about what's going to happen. What if this happens? What if that happens? What's going to happen at this event? What's going to happen with this project, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so being the type of person who has anxiety and thinks about the what if and the what next, this is where planning comes into it. Planning is really, really important for someone who's suffering from anxiety. It's bloody important for anyone, to be honest. But I think more emphasis on planning helps you to be prepared for what's coming up next week, next month, next year, etc. Now, I'm not saying you have to plan every aspect of life, but if you're anything like me, you probably do. And that's okay as well. So I like to plan my week in advance. I like to plan what's major projects or initiatives are happening for the month ahead. I like to plan what I'm going to do for certain projects each week. I like to go through a checklist of activities once a week, often on a Sunday, and go through and identify what it is that's coming up. But I also do a reflection and look at the week that's passed. And I have a number of different templates and tools and checklists to do that. But I follow the same process most weeks when I can. And then I think about what's coming up. And having planning gives you clarity, and clarity gives you confidence. And confidence helps to minimize the anxiety. So planning in advance and trying to think about what you need to do so you don't worry about it and go try to go to sleep and have insomnia about it is really, really important. And if you have a structured way of planning, it means that you're not going to miss things. You're likely to have covered all bases. And you can do that quite easily using a checklist, a notebook, etc. For example, today I listed out about 15 things that I wanted to achieve. The smallest things, from paying an invoice that was due today to planning out content for the week ahead. Everything on that list then gets ranked by priority. And then I basically go through from 1 through to 15, or as far as I can get based on the time available to me. So planning is extremely important, and it really, really does help you on your journey to success. So as I said at the beginning, it's not easy. Some days are so much harder, but I think a lot of proactiveness really, really can help you. Proactivity, being proactive and thinking about things in advance is really going to help you to ease your mind and actually make you feel a little bit calmer because you know that you've taken the time necessary to plan things in advance. You know that you're looking for evidence next time you're feeling anxious, and you question and challenge yourself on those just like anybody else would challenge. You balance the thoughts, the feelings, and the behaviors. And then you make sure you take reflection on how well that you have gone in the previous week or month, or even in the last 24 hours. Ultimately, taking the time to do these things will really, really help you. As I said, it's a roller coaster of emotions. Anxiety takes you up and it brings you down, but it is something that you can overcome so you can learn how to manage it so it doesn't manage you. So that's it, guys, for today. I hope that's been helpful for you. And I would really, 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 really appreciate being a small business and being a, one person band on this particular podcast. Would be really great if you could tell someone about this episode, this podcast, or even just leave me a review. It'll take you 30 to 60 seconds to do that, and it would mean the absolute world to me. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Please share this with someone or rate it if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to follow us on social media, and to stay up to date with all things Agile ideas, go to our website www.agilemanagementoffice.com. I hope you've been able to learn, feel, or be inspired today. Until next time, what's your Agile idea?